Friends, good morning. And welcome to worship here in the historic sanctuary of the Fountain Street Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a home for seekers, a home for believers and non-believers, for people who want only to share in our common quest. No matter who you are and no matter where you're at in your journey of life, you are truly welcome here at Fountain Street. This week, I am reminded of the story of a priest in the 3rd century beneath the boot heel of an empire in Rome. This priest practiced forbidden weddings in the catacombs beneath the city. Roman citizens who wished to be united in holy matrimony of a religion that did not belong to the state, and for this, the priest was martyred. And for his martyrdom, he was made a saint. And so this week, we celebrated the feast day of Saint Valentine, patron saint of forbidden weddings, and always and forever for me, a patron saint of same-sex weddings for all of those years that we practiced them together. Friends, I hope you had a beautiful Valentine's Day. There are a couple of wonderful events coming up today following worship. Immediately after worship, we're going to have a presentation in the chapel. I think there's going to be food available for those who want to learn more about Answer Nepal. Answer is a program that the Fountain Street Church has been formative. It began here at Fountain Street Church. It arose out of this place 25 years ago. It's Fountain Streeters banding together. It's a global effort to create a non-religious, non-partisan organization dedicated to helping the people of Nepal. For over 2 decades, members of Fountain Street have worked hand in hand with the people of Nepal to create what was known as the American Nepali Students and Women's Educational Relief, or ANSWER. And to date, as of this writing, 42 Fountain Streeters have participated in this program. Some of them have traveled to Nepal. They participate through sponsorships and other efforts. If you want to learn more about this program, head over to the chapel following worship, and I believe that Dr. Doug Donnell is going to be here today to talk more about this. Later on today, this afternoon, we're hosting a huge community celebration here at the church. Melt the Ice is a fundraiser and concerts. It's going to be here from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. There's going to be live music and good food. All of the funds that are raised will go to Movimiento Cosecha here in Grand Rapids and CCOM, some of our other mission partners, all partners who work to strengthen and support families who are impacted by ICE and who are living under threats right now. So that's today here, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., and show up hungry, I've been told. So that's good. A very exciting announcement coming up that we just only recently found out about. On February 24th, we're going to be able to have a screening here of Taylor Tomlinson's new special. Yes. So we were invited to host a release night screening of comedian Taylor Tomlinson's new stand-up special, Prodigal Daughter. This is going to be released on Netflix on February 24th, and that was filmed here in the church. So we're going to come here and watch the thing that was filmed here. It will be really great, and this is open to all. Taylor also recorded a special message of gratitude for the good people of Fountain Street. So join us for drinks, snacks, conversation. We're going to get together at about, I think, 5:30 p.m. on the 24th, and then the screening's going to be at 6:15 p.m. The event is free, and it's open to all Fountain Street Church members, with donations accepted to benefit the Community Events Fund. Folks, there's too much happening in the life of this church for me to put it into the announcements. Please read the chimes. It's your best source for what's happening here every single day of the week. And everything that we do, Monday through Saturday, is geared toward equipping and building peace in this community. This is a church that's dedicated to peace. And so before we sing our first hymn, Bells in the High Tower, let's go ahead and share a word of peace. I'll give a word and you can return it if you wish, and then greet one another with similar words. Friends, peace be with you. Let's greet one another with words of peace. You may be seated.
This reading is Every Child Should Know a Hill by Edna Kassler Joel. Every child should know a hill and the clean joy of running down its long slope with the wind in their hair. They should know a tree, the comfort of its cool lap of shade, and the supple strength of its arms, balancing them between earth and sky. So they are a creature of both. They should know bits of singing water, the strange mysteries of its steps, and the long, sweet grasses that border it. Every child should know some scrap of uninterrupted sky to shout against, to have one star, dependable and bright, for wishing on. Let us all be that star for a child or two.
I want to invite all of the children. I want to invite all the children who are here this morning to come down and join me up front for a brief word before you get off to adventures. If you're a child, you can come down front and join me up here. We've got quite a few kids up in Owl this week too, but I just need a few helpers this morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, gang. Good to see you. And thank you for joining us down here in the sanctuary. I know that you have important stuff to do, and I appreciate you coming and joining time so we could do this blessing together. So this afternoon, something cool is going to happen here. I mean, cool stuff's happening right now, too. This is pretty cool, I think. But this afternoon, we're going to have a bunch of bands come and play music. Have any of you ever gone to see a band play music?
I have.
Yeah? You have? That's good. I'm in a band. Sometimes we play music. We have a lot of fun. Any of you play in a band or want to play in a band? Because we need some more acts for this afternoon. If we should. You do? What do you play? You play percussion and flute? Did you ever do percussive flute, like Jethro Tull? Like he was a percussive flute player from the 80s. I mean, I shouldn't expect you to know that, but what do you play? Okay.
So I do lead vocals.
Nice.
I teach the pianist piano.
Okay.
And then I also make and edit the song.
Really? That's amazing. That's like Brian Wilson kind of level. I mean, that's everything. That's huge. The bands that are coming in to play this afternoon, they're doing it to raise money to support families that need help here in our city of Grand Rapids. They're really, really cool musicians. It's really wonderful of them to do this. So they're offering their music as a gift, right? As a gift to help all these families. And we think that all music is a gift, and it doesn't have to be super complicated. And all singing is a gift too. So this blessing this morning is just that this week we will hear the simple gifts and celebrate them. Does that sound like a plan? All right. You could repeat after me. This week, we'll celebrate the simple gifts of music. We can make our way to character school, and I'll see you all in just a little bit.
This is from The Child and Its Enemies by Emma Goldman. Is the child to be considered as an individuality or as an object to be molded according to the whims and fancies of those about it?
Every institution of our day, the family, the state, our moral codes, sees in every strong, beautiful, uncompromising personality a deadly enemy. Therefore, every effort is being made to cramp human emotion and originality of thought in the individual into a straitjacket from its earliest infancy. Not into a well-rounded individuality, but into a patient work slave, professional automaton, tax-paying citizen, or righteous moralist.
Truths dead and forgotten long ago. Conceptions of the world and its people covered with mold even during the times of our grandmothers are being hammered into the heads of our young generation.
In whatever direction one turns, eagerly searching for human beings who do not measure ideas and emotions with the yardstick of expediency, one is confronted with the products, the herd-like drilling, instead of the result of spontaneous and innate characteristics working themselves out in freedom.
The scriptures tell us that God created man in his own image, which has by no means proven a success. Parents follow the bad example of their heavenly master. They use every effort to shape and mold the child according to their image. They tenaciously cling to the idea that the child is merely part of themselves, an idea as false as it is injurious, and which only increases the misunderstanding of the soul of the child, of the necessary consequences of enslavement and subordination thereof.
The terrible struggle of the thinking person against political, social, and moral conventions owes its origin to the family, where the child is ever compelled to battle against the internal and external use of force. The categorical imperatives, you shall, you must, this is right, that is wrong, this is true, that is false, shower like a violent rain upon the unsophisticated head of the young being, and to press upon its sensibilities that it has to bow before the long established and hard notions of thoughts and emotions.
A young, delicate tree that is being clipped and cut by the gardener in order to give it an artificial form will never reach the majestic height and the beauty as when allowed to grow in nature and freedom.
Some will ask, what about weak natures? Must we not protect them? Yes. But to be able to do that, it will be necessary to realize that education of children is not synonymous with herd-like drilling and training.
If education should really mean anything at all, it must insist upon the free growth and development of the innate forces and tendencies of the child. In this way alone can we hope for the free individual and eventually also for a free community, which shall make interference and coercion of human growth impossible.
Let us take a moment together in silence and meditation and consider these things. Etched above the stone doorway to this church And he said, "Let the children come unto me, and do not hinder them, for it is to such as these that belongs the kingdom of peace." Hear these words from theologian Judith Gundry-Wolff, from The Child in Christian Thought. The most significant challenge before us is to recapture in our own context the radicalness of Jesus' teaching about children. Children are not only subordinate, but sharers with adults in the life of faith. They're not only to be formed, but to be imitated. They are not ignorant, but capable of receiving spiritual insight. They're not just children, but representatives of God. What makes that challenge so difficult is that it would entail changing not only how adults relate to children, but how we conceive of our social world. Jesus did not just teach how to make an adult world kinder and more just for children. He taught the arrival of a social world defined by and organized around children. He cast judgment on the adult world because it is not the child's world. He made being a disciple dependent on inhabiting this new small world. And he invited the children to come to him, not so that he might initiate them into the adult world, but so that they might receive what is properly theirs, the reign of God. Fountain Street Church, happy Sunday. Thank you. Every church has a theological model. Every single one. Actually, scratch that. Every church has two theological models. At least two. They've got the theology that they put on the website and on the sign out front, and then they've got the one that they practice in their daily lives. The one theology in the streets and another in the pews. That's how it works. And the word theology gets people wound up. Theology is an absolutely massive language symbol. It's a huge word. It just means words about gods. But the gods part of that word, the theos part, describes way, way more than our little word, our little Proto-Germanic word God. God is a small word, and theos is a very big word. If I were in charge of words, and I'm not, but if I was, I would dump all of this in the wastebasket and start over with something probably more like Paul Tillich's ground of being, ground of all being, is what we're talking about. Theology is the things that are foundational. Fundamentally about the things that your minister Duncan Littlefair called our common quest. We're meant to bring our deepest, holiest, and most sacred questions through the doors of this place and talk about them together. That's the point of Fountain Street Church. Last year, I preached at some length about the theologies of Fountain Street Church. I focused on the two theological movements that have been embraced by this place in worship and practice since the 1940s. We talked about the integration of process theology in the 1940s and 50s. It supplanted much of the social gospel work that was done here in the 20s and 30s. And then later came the addition of liberation theology in the 1980s. Fountain Street Church has theological commitments that emerge out of the history of this place, and every minister since Littlefair has embraced process theology or liberation theology in some form or another. You're not hiring ministers that are doing dispensationalism or pietism or something like that. And every church has this, and I could tell you what LaGrave, Christian Reformed Church, worshiping right now as we speak. It's a sacred home base for classical, confessional, Reformed theology. Now we, over here, we call it neo-Calvinism. They don't like that term. But they've been beaten back another theology. They've been beaten back Christian nationalism with an old Dutch broom handle to save their lives over there. God help them. And most churches in the CRC are facing a crisis because their orthodox theology is at odds with the practical theology, with the practice theology of some of the people who worship there. Everybody's got a theology. St. Mark's Episcopal. It does sacramental Anglican theology, a Westminster progressive Reformed theology, and Park Church is careful. Park Church is also liberation theology, like us, but without a lot of the messy process and naturalism stuff. This has nothing to do with it being a Christian church. There are theologies in every culture, in every practice, in every corner of the world. Temple Emmanuel practices beautiful theologies of Reformed Jewish liberalism. All Souls is a humanist, pluralist theology. West Michigan Hindu Temple, 4 miles from where I live, is a pluralistic devotional bhakti. Nothing to do with being Christian. But some Christians take their theology so seriously that they refuse to acknowledge any others. If it isn't presuppositional, post-millennial, theonomic, Christian, Reformed, it's not Christian. They get wound up about this. It's ridiculous. Don't listen to these people. And this is just the surface, because how much of this penetrates down to what people actually do and live? The real theology of a church is its practical theology, the stuff that people think is really real when they go out there in the world. And it's often at odds with the stuff they say they believe in church. There's a few places you can see these two things interact. Money. Money is probably the easiest one to point to. I can preach about the spiritual dimensions of money all day. And people say they don't worship money, and I've never met anyone who's going to look me in the eyes and tell me that money is sacred to them, and then I pull out a $20 bill and I light it on fire, and people have feelings about this. Did I desecrate an idol? Well, you get a reaction to that. Try doing the same with an American flag. See what people think is real. Super Bowl is theological. The Super Bowl. People got pretty wound up about the halftime show this time, at least. Other time it was the kneeling during the special song. It was a liturgy. Don't mess with it. Apparently somebody felt that their gods were being disrespected on TV. Liberation theology seeks to avoid some of this by claiming the real experience, the practical experience of life is in of itself revelatory about something sacred. Roman Catholic theologian Carmen Nanco Fernandez reminds us that the image of God, this idea of humankind created in the image of a creator, that the first cause is reflected in the creation, in the people, in the creation itself. All of this, it reflected the divine foundation of being. It's not telling us something beautiful, and it's not simply telling us something about ourselves. It's not simply telling us something beautiful and holy about ourselves. It means we can know more about the divine source of the universe by studying the diversity of human life. So if humankind is made in the image of God, and some human beings are disabled, then God is disabled. That is reflected in God. It means that because human beings are women, God is a woman. The image of God is also a man. The image of God is also a non-binary person and a queer person and an elderly person and all of these people. Liberation theology, then, takes on countless forms. It comes out of an understanding amongst a certain people in certain circumstances in history that God is on their side. God is on the side of the oppressed, and God is the oppressed and marginalized. God is visible in these people and their lives. And all of this is reflected in the stories that are woven into the Bible and into the mythic stories that are given to us by our ancestors. All of it. The stories of the Bible and of other holy literature reveal the deep story of humanity locked in a struggle with the powers of empire. God is always at work in the liberation of the poor, the enslaved, the oppressed, from the shackles of the systems of sin and violence that are destroying the world. So from the story of Exodus, the book of Ruth and Esther, and the preaching and actions of Jesus of Nazareth, in relationship with the Roman Empire, and then in relationship with the power of death itself, or the revelation of John, a vision, part of God's vision for creation, of shalom, the healing of the world, and the liberation of the people who live there. Scholarship around this liberation theology was born out of the 1960s. Began with radical Roman Catholic resistance in Latin America, resistance to fascism in the 60s. Priests and scholars like Father Gustavo Gutierrez. And then in the United States with black liberation theology, James Cone's God of the Oppressed. And then feminist and womanist theologies of liberation blossomed, helped shape communities of understanding. In South Africa, the work of Reverend Alan Bosick, a Dutch Reformed minister, and the Anglican Bishop Desmond Tutu. Their liberation theology was the mythic framework in which they could understand the spiritual dimensions of the fight against apartheid. The work continues. So foundational to my own understanding of reality is the Palestinian liberation theology of Bishop Naim Atik and queer liberation theology. That's why I try to teach you the stories of the queer heroes of the Bible. There are many of them. There's liberation theology in every setting in which oppressed people are trying to understand the moral dimensions of their suffering. If humankind are the image bearers of God, then God reflects the diversity of human experience, and God empathizes and experiences suffering. For those of us that take this seriously, then we see in Jesus on the cross the very God of the universe nailed to a tree and murdered by the state. And you look out at the landscape of American history and see the long shadows of lynching trees. God is black. There is black liberation theology at work. You look then now today to the Holy Family fleeing the violence of King Herod and the men, women, and children dying in American concentration camps and fleeing ICE. And you see that God is an immigrant. God is a refugee. There are immigrant liberation theologies. In Jesus' story, we see God then as an intensely disabled person, taunted by onlookers to come down from the cross and save himself. And yet this disabled person quite literally saves the world. We have a liberation theology of disability. And then when you look then to that same person is a baby carried in Mary's arms, the same baby that was worshipped by shepherds and blessed by magi, laying in a manger beneath the light of a wandering star, and you can say with every molecule of your being, God is a child. There are children in the revelation of God, and a child saves the world. So now we see today emerging a field of child liberation theologies. And never, perhaps, was it more needed than in this terrible moment. I think that because of our history here at Fountain Street, our commitments to naturalism and liberation, we can create space together for the practice of child liberation theology. Now, churches often have a sort of spoken theology of childhood, a theology for children that they put on the sign that's different from the concrete stuff they do. When we talk about the world that we want to shape for children, we're also doing theology, but the voices must be those of the humans that will inherit that world. Today's reading that we heard from Emma Goldman, she's speaking about children, about the perils of being a child in the world. I adore Emma Goldman, and I wish I could just talk about Emma Goldman for an hour. Emma Goldman she's one of my patron saints, and she would hate that because she was an atheist. She was born in 1869, radicalized after the Haymarket affair in Chicago. She was a free thinker and an early feminist, important figure. Emma Goldman is lamenting the impossible bind that children find themselves in, writing, every effort in our educational life seems to be directed toward making of the child a being foreign to itself. A being foreign to itself. The word for this is alienation. Goldman is railing against the systems on the left and the right and everywhere in between that are trying to force a child into some mold that is alien from itself, advocating instead for autonomy and freedom. And she's doing this in an age when children were considered property, or worse, an abundant source of cheap labor in the United States. What is the hope of liberation for children? Child liberation theology begins from the radical position that children are fully human beings, and they have inalienable rights, and that this is a reflection of the sacred order and nature of the universe, and that God is revealed as a child. It asks uncomfortable questions about the way in which we choose to control children and deprive them of their rights, and whether or not the rights of children are human rights, or if they're just privileges that we extend to some children and not others. Today, R.L. Stoller is probably the leading current writer and scholar in the field of child liberation theology. And his 2023 work, The Kingdom of Children, is foundational to this way of thinking. Others working on this, the theologian Rebecca Stevens Walter, patiently explains the way that they bring liberation into churches by first listening to children. Stevens Walter recounts her experience trying to minister with children in white, liberal, mainline Protestant churches, where children were segregated from the adults and sent away from worship after a brief blessing to some other part of the building. Folks, we have work to do. Stevens Walters writes, "My experience growing up in a white Protestant church was that children were to be quiet, cute, and attentive, restricted. The white Protestant church is where I learned that God didn't like wriggling or gum smacking or questions. It was where I was first told that there was a condition to being loved. It was where I forgot to love myself." End quote. What does this translate into on the ground, in the practical? It means that children are heard and listened to and given a seat at the table. You already did this at Fountain Street Church. You've done this before. In 1920s, you did this, and again in the 1970s. You set aside a seat on the governing board for a representative of the Fountain Club. And you trusted the Fountain Club, the youth group, with their own budget and their own bank account and their own treasurer and their own elections. Some of you in this room remember this. I'm sure it was boring as spit when you were 16. You would do it. What are you doing this weekend? You going to the game? I have to do accounting for the church youth group. But this was liberational. You gave tremendous power and authority to the kids to chart their own course. You know who brought Amelia Earhart to this church in the 1910s? It was the young girls' youth group. It was the girls, the high school girls of the church. And they figured that out on their own. They brought Helen Keller as well. This is practical liberation theology. There's a Bible story to it because Jesus ran off when he was like 12 and taught a class in the temple. A child shall lead them. You refuse to indoctrinate them into anything other than using their minds to think for themselves. This last point is important. This is where the global religious education piece comes in. The kids at the church, there are kids in churches today. God, the word church has been taken over. Kids at churches being taught that there's only one possible theology in the world and there's only one real religion in the world. That's a crazy thing to teach a kid. That doesn't line up with any kind of reality, historical or otherwise. The church is terrified of this stuff. It means because a child will have questions. And so many of you sitting in this room right now, others who were not part of Fountain Club or these other programs or groups, you were a child in a church somewhere where Emma Goldman's prophecy was coming true. They were forcing you into a mold, forcing you to play a part or confess some theology, some narrow path. They were shaping you into a creature alien to yourself, and so you simply asked, why? Why? And you were met with panic, confusion, dismissal. And for some of you, that was the first step on your journey to this very room. I'm grateful that my parents never tried to hide the truth from me. There's 1,000 religions and myths and cultures. There are 10,000 different names for God. And I knew from the earliest moments of consciousness that religion was a thing that human beings chose for themselves. And I was taught that while there were thousands of religions to choose from, turns out 99% of the human population never chooses anything because it's the same religion as their parents. That's not a choice. That's indoctrination. It's biological determinacy. It's the opposite of freedom, the opposite of liberty. Let them choose. Let them choose. And any God or council of gods or unifying spirit or force of nature or theory of everything that cannot withstand the scrutiny of a child is not worth worshiping. Jesus agrees with this. Jesus revealed this when he said, "Let the children come unto me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of peace belongs to those such as these." Liberate them. And you can't do it if you don't trust them. You can't do it if you don't trust them. And you can't do it if you don't listen to them. And you can't do it if you don't know their names. And so we've got work to do. We do have work to do. But what's this work? I'm not sure how we're going to do it if they're always up there and we're down here, and we're going to have to figure this stuff out. It's not going to be easy. But by God, we'll figure it out. I pulled some pews so we could have more space for them to roll around and do stuff. I don't know. I need your help. Nobody was sitting in those seats. I got rid of them. You can bring them back if you need them. But we'll work at this thing because in these days, it has fallen to us, church, to be a house of light and hope and empowerment for the next generation. And everything that we are up against is threatening their world, their future, and their chance. Everything. The choir's going to come up here in just a moment, and I listen to the choir. This song they're about to sing. It's about preparing our hearts to listen to children. Preparing our hearts. So first we prepare the ground, and then we let the sunshine and the rain do the work. And a free garden is going to bloom, and it'll grow out of this place until it overflows the boundaries of the fences, and a new world is born. I know it will happen. I've seen it. I know it will happen. Let's prepare our hearts. Amen. As the choir takes their seats, I'll remind you that the work and mission of Fountain Street Church, this beacon of hope for a better future built together, is sustained by your giving and your generosity. And so at this time, I'll invite the ushers to come forward and receive any offerings or gifts that you've brought to share today. And thank you. As we prepare our hearts to live into this new future, we sow these seeds into the good. May they flourish and blossom for all, and so may it be. And so let us join our voices together in singing our closing hymn. Please join me in our responsive sending as we prepare our hearts to return to the world. The world will be saved by love. We go to love the world. Amen.